think this will set the movement, the community back?
Yes.
Oh yes, it's already started. Like the governor's already starting to go ahead and process with the different amendments and things and stuff like that. Like they just had one about the youth and the hormone therapy and stuff like that. So this is a big setback because now they're looking like, okay, so this is what we're gonna do in the public. This is how we're gonna act. Okay, just keep them away, lock them up. That's what they looking at us like animals now because she wants to go to the White House and flash her brick.
I, alongside other powerful voices in the queer and trans communities, were invited to be represented, seen, and heard in unique and a very special way.
Rose Montoya, aka the White House Flasher. I love that people call her that. It just tickles me. I know it's silly and I know it's overly dramatic, but I still think it's funny that they call her the White House Flasher. But Rose Montoya has come out with an apology, and if you thought that I wasn't going to take this apart,
I'm right on top of that, Rose.
and even though in a way I think it was the right thing to do, at the same time, I knew it was a mistake. But it's good for all of us because this is the signal to the beginning of the end with the trans ridiculousness. Mark my words, I will make my case and then you will watch the way that this will play out.
In a quick moment of fleeting and overwhelming trans joy,
what's the difference between trans joy and regular joy? So if trans joy is like trans everything else, then trans joy is not real joy. But if you squint, it looks like real joy. But then if you really examine it, it's not actually joy at all. But eventually, they're going to try to gaslight us into believing that not only is it the same as actual joy, but is in fact what joy is. And then one day soon, trans joy will start trying to take the place of real joy. And then we'll all start losing our jobs if we don't just shut up and agree that trans joy is in fact real joy. Or maybe trans joy is just an act of narcissism disguised as real joy. You decide.
He's unbothered.
What's up, everybody? Tyra Berry here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Before we get started, I'm just going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to comment to help me on the algorithm, but you don't know what to comment, just put a knife, because you know they're going to come for my neck on this one. Right now, I'm coming to you guys on location from Calgary, Canada. I was doing a show here tonight. We'll talk about it another time. First off, on the last video that I made about this, a lot of people were saying the trans men that also took off their shirts.
my trans masculine friends were showing off their top surgery scars and living in joy, and I wanted to join them.
Should have gotten in trouble for that situation. You have to remember that there were just everyday LGBT people that had been invited to this event, and then there were also influencers like Rose Montoya that had also been invited to this event. So when you have everyday people that aren't social media influencers, they're not necessarily going to get thrown under the bus the same way, because Rose is an influencer and chose to put it on her social media, which I know her Instagram alone has over 100,000 followers. I don't know what her TikTok has, but I think her TikTok is at least as successful, if not more so, than her Instagram. So there's going to be a different consequence for her than there's going to be for the trans men. And also, the trans men, if they're really men, why wouldn't they step forward and protect this woman? Well, why doesn't margarine hold up like real butter? Because it ain't real butter, girl. Besides, we all know that everybody wants to be brave until it's time to actually be brave. I also do fully understand when people say that a chest is a chest and a nipple is a nipple, and I agree with you guys on that. Like, if a woman wants to take off her shirt in public the same way a man can take his shirt off in public, I think that that should be completely allowed. But as far as at the White House, I think we all can agree that nobody should be taking their shirts off at an official event at the White House, especially when we know the fact is right now where we're at as a society, women are not supposed to flash their breasts in public, and it's not supposed to happen around kids. And so if you're a trans woman and you're presenting yourself as a woman, that is considered indecent, and you shouldn't do it at a place where kids are, which this was supposed to be a family-friendly White House Pride celebration. This wasn't West Hollywood Pride. This wasn't San Francisco Pride. This was a White House Pride event. So not really a Pride event at all. And now here she is apologizing, which, like I said, I believe is a huge mistake for her as the person that she's claiming to be, because like anybody that apologizes to any kind of cancel mob, she's basically ineffective. She's a non-issue and a victory has been had. I think that America is tired of not only the LGBT community, but especially the trans faction, which she has become the poster girl for the trans movement now, whether she likes it or not. And she didn't set a good example. So even other LGBT people are not having it with you. So you in the mainstream at this point, Rose Montoya, nobody wants you in that capacity. LGBT doesn't even want you in that capacity. And I blame the LGBT community for all of this, because somewhere along the way, they decided to make it seem like trans people could do no wrong. And now because certain trans people have decided to act accordingly, it's become a very harsh reality that they've awakened to, where they're getting told you can very much lose public favor. And that's exactly what happened to Rose. So this is the turning point now where LGBT and trans specifically is no longer going to get the free pass. There's no longer going to be just a get out of jail free card for every trans person. And Rose really did bring that on, not only by her actions at the White House.
The behavior was simply unacceptable.
But especially with this apology, because now she's accepted that she did mess up. So now all bets are off for the LGBT community. It was already happening with the legislation, and all we needed was that last push to be like, no, this has gotten too carried away. Rose gave us that. Let's hear out the apology.
Today I need to apologize.
She's taxed, girl. Just taxed from the beginning. Today I need to apologize.
Earlier this month, I was invited by the White House to attend a Pride celebration with both President Biden and Dr. Biden. I, alongside other powerful voices in the queer and trans communities, were invited to be represented, seen, and heard in unique and a very special way.
Yeah, I would say flashing her tits is a very unique and special way to be seen and heard at the White House.
As anti-2S LGBTQIA+,
2S LGBT. 2S. I looked up the 2S for anybody that's wondering what the 2S is about. Two-spirited is what that's about. And I know what you're doing. Rose identifies as Hispanic, which means she's the white side of Latino. That's what it means if you look at it. If you check it out, that's what Hispanic is. She identifies as Hispanic. But if you look at pictures of her family, her mother is clearly white. So her mother is white, her father is Hispanic. And what people like this will do, I know because I'm brown and I see people do it all the time. Nothing against white people in general, but when it comes to overly politically correct people that are technically white or get treated as white in society, they'll culturally appropriate, which they're very much against. Me personally, I don't have a problem with cultural appropriation. America is a melting pot and everybody does take from everybody else's culture. So I'm not trying to come after anybody for that, and I'm not trying to make that a real thing. But when I notice the politically correct people try to hide behind things like Native American culture, which when it comes to two-spirited, that's something that's completely different than the ridiculousness that represents itself as trans right now. And I will speak up and say, no, Rose, that's not you being sincere. And I am going to break this up because you guys don't want to hear this apology just straight through, because all she does is bullshit us throughout the entire apology. So yes, we will hear her out. And if you want, I'll include this at the end of the video. I'll put a timestamp right here so you know where you can scroll to if you just want to hear her uninterrupted. But for the people that want to have fun with this, which is what I want to do, because to me it's a complete joke of an apology, I got you, boo. Or I repeat,
I'm right on top of that, Rose.
especially anti-trans violence and legislation.
All right, so we've already been over this with the anti-trans legislation. There really isn't a lot of anti-trans legislation going right now. Is there legislation being introduced and put in place that trans people don't like? Very much so. But is the average American looking at this as anti-trans? Not at all. Sell it somewhere else, Rose.
Runs rampant across our country. I was proud to be invited to speak at the National Press Club during my trip to Washington, D.C., in order to speak about transgender people and experiences at the highest levels of our nation. In a quick moment of fleeting and overwhelming trans joy, I decided to do something unbecoming of a guest of the president at the White House lawn celebration. More so than ever before, I have learned how powerful and just how impactful my actions are and how impactful it is when we share our stories and experiences.
You flash your tritties. Moobs. That's going to have an impact.
And how we do so with the world. I want to take this moment to apologize for the impact of my actions. I especially want to apologize to my Black trans brothers and siblings.
Okay, I'm confused as to why she chose to apologize to her Black trans brothers and siblings. Black trans women in particular. I know some Black trans women have been very vocal about the fact that they didn't appreciate her doing that.
It's not right. If you're going to present yourself and be a woman, be a woman. Mm-hmm. That's why they won't invite us nowhere. But, you know, you see it's the white people in the LGBTQ plus community cutting up like that. We know better. We know it's a time and place for everything. Don't do that at the White House.
Because it does bring heat on them as well. So I guess I can understand it, but at the same time, I don't see it as sincere. I see it more as her trying to use Black trans people as kind of like, let me turn this into being about something bigger. So it can't be about the free the nipple thing anymore. Now it's time for her to call attention to Black trans women. That way it seems like she's still doing something good. So this all turned out to be something for the good after all, because she's decided to use Black trans women as her way of giving some act of contrition.
Especially transgender women who are Black, because I understand that you all are constantly at a disproportionate level.
This goes back to why I have a problem with the two-spirit thing as well. Because the truth about the gay community and Native American, and I have a lot of Native American LGBT friends because I grew up in Arizona, LGBT has never given two shits about the Native American community. But now, because they can put them at the front of the letters and make it seem like they really care about indigenous people, and they can use them when they say BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. Now, when they're conveniently able to be used basically as political pawns for the left, now they want to act like they're very welcoming and inclusive of Native Americans. And that is not true in the community. I get it if you want to correct that, but at the same time, don't put them at the front as your human shield while you're trying to pull some fuck shit, which is what a lot of this trans stuff is fuck shit. When it comes to actual transsexuals, I've been very clear. I am very much on the side of actual transsexuals, but a lot of what calls itself transgender, fuck shit. 100% unadulterated fuck shit.
Impacted by the actions of others, and especially by anti-trans violence. I would also like to apologize to my family and friends who have been harassed. I would also like to apologize to my own community, the 2S LGBTQIA plus community.
Plus community. Let's just stop. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to deal with it. Stop. It doesn't matter.
And last but not least, I would like to apologize to the president, the White House, and the nation. It was also never my intention to create a situation that would lead to harassment and harm of myself and others.
She's the victim. Clearly, she's the victim. What it's done to her and her family, her and her people are the real victims in all of this. I don't know why anybody thought this would be anything other than her trying to let everybody know how this has impacted her. So even though she's trying to make it seem like an apology, it's really not an apology. It's letting you guys know that she's going through a lot right now.
Nor for trans joy, like my little moment of trans joy, to be
her little moment of trans joy. Here we go back with the trans joy. She's going to keep pushing the trans joy because she's trying to make it seem like there's something especially sacred about her joy, about trans joy. We're all supposed to take a back seat to trans joy.
Weaponized by vile people of the opposition.
don't blame the conservatives, because we as other LGBT have been saying that we don't appreciate what you did. So when you try to make it seem like it's just about the conservatives and their vile attacks, no. This is a lot of your people coming after you right now and being like, no, girl, what you did was wrong. It's in your comments right now, even on your apology, people still saying what you did was wrong. And people of color being shouted down in your comments by white trans people being told that they need to just forgive you and accept that you made a mistake. So even though your words are saying, I'm trying to unify and speak for people of color, if you look in your actual comments, there's a lot of white people that are supposedly LGBT plus and their allies in your comments shouting down trans people of color. So maybe address that in your next video and really work on your community. Since it's so much your community, work on that instead of trying to tackle the outside world, because clearly you're not ready for the outside world. You don't know how to behave yourself. Trans joy may take over again, and who knows what you might do next time.
Moving forward, I am committed to using this moment as a catalyst for creating positive change, both within myself and within the broader community and the world at large. It is my sincere intention to actively promote empathy, equity, inclusion, and understanding.
Equity, empathy, inclusion, and understanding. What does any of that have to do with apologizing for flashing your tits? That's just a person using buzzwords so that it can distract and make it seem like they're much more noble and giving than they actually are. This wasn't just a complete act of selfishness, which is what she really should have said. This apology should have been as simple as, hey guys, I'm sorry, I got carried away, I did something stupid, I shouldn't have done it, I'm sorry it reflected badly on the community, I need to do some thinking, I'm gonna step away from the spotlight for a little while because clearly I haven't handled it the best. My apologies to the community for my behavior. I take full responsibility. I hope one day I can come back and be the representative that you all thought I was.
Through my words and my actions and my advocacy efforts. I also feel energized to educate and articulate to others the importance and power of trans joy in a more effective way. Finally, as I work to engage in meaningful conversations with my community and my allies, I would like to ask for everyone, especially media outlets and journalists, to please respect mine, my family's, my friends, and my loved ones' privacy during this time. I am unavailable for additional comments, and I will not be conducting interviews at this time. Thank you so much for listening.
She sure did raise that mitt to give everybody a kiss. Covered up half her damn face. Anyway, I also saw people saying what you did wasn't that bad. It wasn't that big of a deal. Welcome to Enabling 101, because you guys really are enabling bad behavior, and you may feel like you're standing up for other trans people or standing up for the trans community. That's not at all what's happening right now. You really are leading a person, and when I say a person, Rose, to her own demise if you don't actually hold her accountable and let her actually figure out what she needs to do moving forward and how she needs to correct this behavior. Because what she did really did set the trans movement back, and it really did affect a lot of people that are just trying to live their lives and are actually trying to make sure that their rights don't deteriorate the way that they've already started to deteriorate because of the extreme activism and the fringe left. And for the rest of us LGBT people that want to see our community continue to thrive and progress the way we were progressing before the far left took over, it is our duty to speak up and speak out against the activists that have hijacked the entire movement and made people think that we're looking for things that we really aren't looking for. For the most part, if you talk to LGBT, and yes, I still include the T because I really do believe in my heart of hearts, after knowing the trans people I've personally known in my life for the last 30 years, that most most trans people are not trying to be what you're seeing right now. They just can't speak out because they get shouted down even worse than any of us, and people will try to cancel them for being hateful just like they try to cancel the rest of us. And if you think about trans people from my generation, and I will not ever stop driving this home because it does actually affect a lot of things. You talk about trans people from my generation, in a lot of cases, the trans women especially that I knew had no choice but to be sex workers when I was younger. That was the only way that they could actually make a living, that they could actually live lives outside of anything that would be minimum wage and being able to live their truth at the same time or as the person that they actually were. So now a lot of them have clawed their way, and I do mean clawed their way into normal and respectable society, and they're living regular lives, having regular jobs, being very productive, and I'm very proud of my friends for that. I am very proud of my girls for actually changing their lives 180, completely turned it around. And it's also one of the reasons that I personally don't mention names when I talk about my friends when they occasionally want to speak up for me on social media, because every once in a while they will pop up on my social media when people are going at me real hard and calling me a transphobe and stuff like that. They will jump in and be like, hey, I've known this guy for 30 years. He's definitely not what you're trying to portray him as. Do I agree with everything he says? Most definitely not. But at the same time, is he hateful towards trans people? Is he transphobic? Most definitely not as well. But I even caution them not to do that, because I'm like, these fools aren't worth it, because they'll go try to go after my friends' jobs, and now my friends that have worked their way out of having no choice but to be sex workers and have really aged out of sex work anyway. No tea, no shade, girls, but we all know it ain't gonna sell the way it used to. Some of you it might, but a lot of you, Again, not me being shady either. I was a sex worker too when I was younger. That's how we all became such good friends at a point. But these goods ain't gonna sell the way they used to, I'll tell you that. They'll still sell, but not the way they used to, and not for the same price. So none of us want to go back to that, except for the difference is I became a stand-up comic, and I'm pretty uncancelable because everybody knows I just don't care, and I'll keep working no matter what. Rednecks will always hire me, and that's where a lot of my career has been spent. But that's the reason that a lot of trans people specifically can't really speak up on this, because they're just trying to live their lives, and that's all they've ever wanted was to live their lives. And that's my point and why I speak up and speak out for them, because there is no consequence to me. So yeah, I definitely do want people to know that the average trans person, the average LGBT person, is not trying to push this ridiculous narrative. And no, you should not take any of your anger or aggression out on the everyday trans person. What we need to do collectively as a society, LGBT, straight, everything in between, everything on the outside, is we all need to band together and just continue to vote on the common sense legislation that will really keep people in their respective places. It's okay that you want to get certain things done. It's okay that you want to enjoy the same freedoms that we do as a society, but some places you guys are overstepping, and that's where legislation just needs to be put in place. Anyway, let me know what you think down below in the comments. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.